I'm writing this down as a way to sort through everything that's happened. It's hard to believe how quickly my life turned upside down. My name is Jake, and I've been married to Amanda for 6 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. Sure, we had our ups and downs, what marriage does. But I never imagined we'd hit this kind of rock bottom. The signs were subtle at first. Amanda, who used to be super into our routine, had started changing her patterns. She'd come home late from work more often, claiming she was caught up with her coworkers on projects. I wanted to be supportive, so I didn't think much of it initially. But then the late-night phone calls began. I'd catch her whispering, usually stepping out of the room when I'd walk in. Each time I asked who was on the line, her answer was the same. Just work stuff, Jake, chill out. But I couldn't chill out. Something inside me started to twist every time she brushed off my questions. It was like a dull ache that grew sharper every day. I'd find little things out of place too. A hair clip I'd never seen before, or the scent of a different cologne lingering in the car. I tried to play it cool, give her the benefit of the doubt. I didn't want to jump to conclusions and act like a jealous fool. Yet the doubts were clawing at me, tearing away at the trust I thought we had built. Then came the day I stumbled upon the truth. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I had decided to surprise her with a picnic at the park. I pulled out her favorite blanket and grabbed some sandwiches. I texted her to let her know I was on my way home to pick her up. But then, just as I was about to get in the car, I noticed her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. I hesitated for a moment but then grabbed it, thinking I could just check the message and put it back. What I found shook me to my core. There were messages between Amanda and someone named Mike, a name I didn't recognize. My heart raced as I scrolled through their conversation, filled with flirty emojis and explicit plans to meet up. I felt like I was suffocating, like the air around me had thickened to the point where I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, my pulse quickening. I had to confront her, but how? I didn't even wait for her to come home. I could hardly think straight. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I was standing in our living room, seething with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief when Amanda walked in. The smile on her face faded the moment she saw the expression on mine. I shoved the phone toward her. "What's this?" I spat, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Her expression shifted from confusion to a defensive glare in an instant. "Jake, it's not what it looks like. Let me explain." She stammered, but I wasn't having any of it. She tried to weave a tale about how Mike was just a friend from work, someone she vented to about our problems. The excuses flowed out of her mouth like a stream, but I was no longer interested in listening to her lies. I could feel the rage building inside me as she continued to deny everything. Every word from her mouth felt like a stab to my heart, a cruel reminder of the trust she had shattered. I wanted to yell, to break something, to let out all the pain she had caused me, but instead I stood there feeling helpless and defeated. Amanda's reaction was infuriating too. She didn't seem sorry in the slightest, just defensive and angry at me for invading her privacy. The nerve of her! How could she turn this around on me? She crossed the line, and I had never felt so lost. It was like she was trying to rewrite the narrative, and I was the villain in her twisted version of our reality. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete unraveling of my life as I knew it. I had to find a way to process this, to figure out what I was going to do next. The emotional impact of what I had just discovered was too much to bear. I felt an overwhelming wave of sadness wash over me as I realized that the woman I had loved and trusted had turned out to be someone I barely recognized. In the days following that confrontation, I felt like I was living in a fog. I couldn't shake the image of Amanda's face, the way her eyes darted away from mine when I brought up the texts. I remember going through the motions of my daily routine, getting up for work, answering emails, making small talk with colleagues, but inside I was a wreck. I felt like a ghost wandering through my own life. Amanda tried to talk to me, to apologize, but her words felt empty. "I'm sorry, Jake. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just a stupid fling," she would say, her voice raising defensively whenever I brought up the pain she caused. She claimed the affair was over, that she wanted to work things out, but how could I trust her? The lies were still fresh, and her insistence made me feel like a fool for even considering the possibility of reconciliation. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly. I could feel the tension hanging in the air like thick smoke. She looked up and tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" she asked, her voice unnaturally bright. I shrugged, not wanting to engage. Instead, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down across from her. After a long silence, I finally broke the ice. "So you're done with Mike, right?" I asked, my voice low and heavy with accusation. She nodded, but I could see a flicker of something in her eyes. Was it guilt? "Of course. I told you it was just a mistake. I love you, Jake." Her words hung in the air, but they felt hollow, devoid of meaning after everything that had happened. Over the next few days, Amanda's behavior continued to raise red flags. She started spending more time on her phone, sometimes stepping outside to take calls. I could feel the knot tightening in my stomach every time she did. It was like she was trying to cover her tracks but was too careless to hide it completely. My paranoia began spiraling out of control. I started tracking her movements, noting how late she got home or how often she received calls from numbers I didn't recognize. One night, I was jolted awake around 2 a.m. by the sound of muffled voices coming from the living room. I grabbed my phone and quietly crept down the hallway. Peering around the corner, I could see Amanda sitting cross-legged on the couch, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. "I told you it's over, Mike," she whispered fiercely, her face twisted in frustration. "You need to stop calling me." My heart sank and rage surged through me. She was still talking to him. I felt like I was about to explode. I stumbled back to our bedroom and slammed the door, trying to control my breathing. I replayed what I heard over and over in my mind. How could she say it was over when she was still in contact with him? The betrayal sliced deeper than I thought possible. The next day, I decided to confront her again. I could no longer let this slide, and she needed to understand the gravity of what she was doing. I waited until she got home from work, my stomach churning with a mix of anxiety and anger. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She barely glanced at me, her eyes glued to her phone. As she dropped her bag on the floor, "Can it wait? I'm tired," she replied dismissively, the lack of concern further igniting the fire inside me. "No, it can't wait," I insisted, stepping closer. "You're still talking to Mike, aren't you? You can't keep lying to me, Amanda. I heard you last night." Her reaction was immediate, a flash of panic racing across her face. "Jake, please, I was just trying to get him to leave me alone," she protested, her voice rising almost to a shriek. "You don't understand what it's like. He won't let me go." Something inside me snapped. "You think that's acceptable? You think I'm just supposed to sit here while you keep stringing me along? This isn't just about you. You've betrayed me and you don't even seem to care." My voice grew louder, fueled by a mix of pain and anger. Amanda's facade crumbled, and for the first time I saw a glimpse of vulnerability. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she cried, tears welling in her eyes. "I was lost, Jake. It was a mistake and I want to fix it. I really do," but I was done listening to her excuses. The emotional impact of her betrayal settled heavily on my shoulders, dragging me into a pit of despair. I wanted to believe that she could change, that we could work it out, but how could I trust her again? Each lie felt like a new bruise on my heart, and I knew I had to make a decision soon. Acceptance began to creep in, but it wasn't a peaceful acceptance. It was grappling with the reality that the person I thought I knew was gone. This was no longer just about love. It was about self-respect and what I wanted out of life. I felt trapped in a cycle of pain, and I needed to break free. The days turned into a blur of confusion and heartache. I found myself oscillating between anger and sadness, each emotion more exhausting than the last. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living in a reality that was no longer mine. My life, which used to be filled with plans and dreams, felt like it was collapsing around me. Amanda's presence became a constant reminder of the betrayal. I started distancing myself, emotionally retreating into my work and avoiding home as much as possible. I spent late nights at the office, telling myself it was for the sake of my career, but in truth, I was running away from the uncomfortable conversations that awaited me at home. I'd return only when absolutely necessary, and every time I walked through that door, I felt a weight on my chest. One evening, after a particularly long day, I found a message on my phone from a friend, Mark, who sensed something was off. He suggested we grab drinks to talk it out. I hesitated but ultimately agreed, recognizing that I needed someone to vent to. It was a welcome distraction from the chaos swirling in my mind. As we settled into a corner booth at our favorite bar, I unloaded everything. I don't even know how to process it, Mark. I thought we were happy. Now I feel like I don't even know my wife, I said, my voice thick with frustration. Mark listened patiently, nodding along as I poured out my heart. You're not the first guy to go through this, Jake. Cheating is more common than you think, he replied, raising his glass for a toast to bad decisions and bad relationships. I chuckled lightly, but it didn't erase the heaviness inside me. I just don't know what to do. Part of me wants to fight for what we had, but another part feels like she's already killed it with her lies. I can't trust her anymore. Trust is everything, man, Mark said firmly. You have to decide what you want. If you want to move on, you have to cut ties. If you want to work it out, she needs to show you she's serious about changing. His words resonated with me. I had been so caught up in my emotions that I hadn't thought clearly about my options. Mark was right. I had to make a decision. But how could I choose when my heart and head were in such turmoil? That night, I returned home with a new sense of purpose. I was going to confront Amanda one last time. I needed clarity, a clear understanding of what she wanted, and whether she was truly committed to rebuilding our relationship. When I stepped into the house, I found her sitting on the couch, her face illuminated by the blue light of the TV. She glanced up, a flicker of hope flashing in her eyes. "Hey, you're home early," she said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what was to come. "We need to talk, Amanda, about us. About the affair," I said, my voice steady. Her smile faltered. "Isn't it all water under the bridge? I told you I'm done with Mike. Can't we just move forward?" "No, we can't just move forward without addressing what happened," I replied firmly. "I need you to be honest with me. How do you really feel about our marriage? Do you want to be with me, or do you still have feelings for him?" She hesitated, biting her lip as if weighing her words. "I want to be with you, Jake. I love you. I got caught up in my feelings and made a mistake. I was lonely and it spiraled, but I want to fix this. I'll do anything." Her desperation was palpable, but it felt rehearsed. Do anything sounded hollow after everything I had been through. "What does that even mean?" I pressed. "How can I trust that you won't just fall back into your old habits?" "I'll cut all contact with Mike, I promise. I'll go to couples therapy, whatever it takes." Her voice quaked with urgency, and I could see she was genuinely afraid of losing me. I took a moment to let it all sink in. I wanted to believe her, to think that love could conquer this betrayal, that we could rebuild what was broken. But the reality was stark. Trust was not something I could easily hand back, not after everything she had done. "Amanda, I need time," I finally said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I need to figure out if I can trust you again. I don't know if I can go back to the way things were." She nodded slowly, the weight of my words settling between us. "I understand. Just know that I'm committed to making this right. I'll do whatever it takes, Jake." As I walked away to the bedroom, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I had finally voiced my boundaries, and while it felt like a step toward clarity, it also felt like the beginning of a long, painful journey. I was no longer just a victim in this situation. I was taking control of my narrative. Over the next few days, I started to gather my thoughts and emotions. I sought advice from close friends and family, trying to navigate the complexities of my feelings. I weighed the pros and cons of staying versus leaving, but each option seemed fraught with its own set of challenges. I knew I had to decide soon. I couldn't live in limbo forever. As I lay in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, I thought of the bruises on my heart and how I needed to heal from this. Whatever I chose, it had to be for my own well-being. I had to find a way to reclaim my happiness, even if it meant letting go of the person I once thought I knew. Deciding to confront Amanda and lay down my boundaries had stirred something within me. It was as if I'd taken the first step on a long path toward healing, even if I didn't know where that path would ultimately lead. I realized I could no longer be passive in this situation. I had to take control of my life, whether that meant fighting for my marriage or preparing to walk away. For the next couple of weeks, Amanda and I danced around the issue of her affair. She was attentive, almost overly so, trying to make up for her betrayal with grand gestures that felt forced rather than genuine. I appreciated the effort, but it wasn't enough. Each time she leaned in to kiss me or offered to cook dinner, I felt a pang in my chest, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. I started attending therapy sessions on my own. I needed a space to express my frustration and confusion, to untangle my feelings about Amanda and our marriage. My therapist, Susan, was incredibly supportive and helped me process my emotions. "You're feeling hurt and betrayed, Jake, and those feelings are valid," she would say. "You need to consider what it means for you to forgive someone who has betrayed your trust. It's a journey, and it's okay to take your time." Through those sessions, I learned about the importance of self-worth and understanding what I wanted from life. The more I reflected on our relationship, the more I began to see its flaws. I realized I had been ignoring my own needs for far too long, trying to fit into a mold of what I thought a good husband should be. After a few weeks of therapy, I felt a sense of clarity emerging. I didn't have to decide immediately whether to stay or leave. I could take my time to figure out what was best for me. But I also knew that I couldn't keep living in this uncomfortable limbo. I needed to put my thoughts into action. One evening, I decided to initiate a conversation with Amanda. "Can we talk?" I said as she was setting the table for dinner. She paused, glancing up with a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. "Sure, what's on your mind?" she replied, her voice tight. I took a deep breath, trying to approach the conversation with a calm demeanor. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to discuss what moving forward looks like for us," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Are we really doing this right now?" she asked, her expression shifting to one of annoyance. "I thought we were past all that. We can't just ignore it, Amanda. We have to face it head on. I need to know if we're both on the same page," I said firmly. She folded her arms across her chest, a defensive posture that only fueled my determination. "What do you mean by that?" she snapped. "I mean I need to understand what you want," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You say you want to fix this, but I need more than words. What are you willing to do to prove that you're committed to our marriage?" Her expression softened a fraction, but I could still see the fear in her eyes. "I'll do anything, Jake. I told you I'd cut all ties with Mike, that I'd go to therapy with you if that's what it takes. I want us to work." "Then let's do that," I said, feeling a rush of hope that maybe we could salvage something from the wreckage. "But I need to see a change in your actions, not just hear promises. We can start couples therapy together, and I need you to be completely honest with me from now on." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I swear I'll do it. I'll make it right. I love you, Jake. I just made a huge mistake." I managed a faint smile, though uncertainty still lingered in the pit of my stomach. "Love can't just be words, Amanda. It has to be backed up by actions. I hope you understand that." The conversation marked a turning point for us. We scheduled our first couples therapy session, and for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this could work. I wanted to believe it could. The first session was tough. Amanda and I sat in the small, cozy office, facing each other across a coffee table. I could sense her nervousness as we discussed the state of our relationship, but I also felt a weight lifted off my shoulders as we began to explore the deeper issues that had led to her affair. The therapist guided us through discussions about communication and vulnerability. I shared my feelings of betrayal and hurt, and Amanda opened up about her insecurities and feelings of loneliness that had driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. It was difficult to hear her recount those moments, but it was a necessary step toward healing. Over the following weeks, we continued our sessions, probing deeper into our relationship dynamics. I watched as Amanda slowly transformed. She began to take ownership of her actions and expressed genuine remorse. I could see her trying to reconnect with me, engaging in more meaningful conversations and spending quality time together. However, there were still moments of doubt. I often caught myself replaying memories of the betrayal in my mind. The emotional impact of her infidelity weighed heavily on me, and I struggled with the idea of whether I could ever fully forgive her. One evening, as we were sitting together on the couch, I noticed faint bruises on her wrists. They weren't alarming, but they were enough to remind me of how fragile our situation was. It struck me, and I couldn't help but ask, "What happened to your wrists?" Her face paled slightly, and she quickly brushed it off. "Oh, it's nothing, just a little bump I got at work," she replied too quickly. I felt a surge of suspicion rising within me. Was she really being honest? It was a small detail, but after everything, I knew I had to stay vigilant. I wanted to trust her, but that trust was like a glass vase, shattered and too fragile to put back together without the risk of breaking again. The doubts began creeping in again, gnawing at my resolve. I couldn't let myself spiral back into paranoia, but how could I ignore the instinctive urge to protect my heart? I decided I needed clarity, a deeper understanding of whether Amanda was truly committed to our marriage or if she was still keeping secrets. I made a mental note to address this in our next therapy session. I needed to figure out if she understood the weight of her actions and if she could truly be the partner I deserved. I had to trust my instincts, even if it meant facing uncomfortable truths. The journey toward healing was just beginning, and I needed to be ready for whatever lay ahead, whether it would be healing together or finding the strength to walk away. As I moved through each therapy session with Amanda, the emotional turbulence in our relationship began to settle, albeit uneasily. We were talking more openly, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were making progress. But a nagging doubt still lingered in the back of my mind about those bruises on her wrists. They were a reminder that despite our efforts, something still felt off. During one session, as we delved deeper into our feelings, I decided to bring it up. "I noticed some bruises on your wrists a couple of weeks ago," I said cautiously, watching her face for any sign of defensiveness. "You said it was nothing, but I can't shake the feeling that it's more than that." Her shoulders tensed, and I could see the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. "It really was just a bump, Jake. I was helping a colleague with some equipment at work. It got knocked over and I accidentally hit my wrist against the edge of the table," she explained, but her tone lacked the confidence I needed to believe her. I nodded, but inside I felt a storm brewing. Despite my efforts to trust her, I couldn't ignore the doubts. My instincts were telling me there was more to the story, and it was gnawing at me. This wasn't just about her affair anymore. It felt like there were layers of deception still to uncover. After that session, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew I needed solid evidence to confront Amanda about my suspicions, especially since she had clearly been evasive. I didn't want to become obsessive, but I had to protect myself. The thought of her potentially lying to me again was unbearable. Over the next few days, I started observing her more closely, paying attention to her interactions and the little things she said. I wanted to see if I could catch any signs of deceit that might confirm my fears. It felt wrong to monitor her like this, but I felt like I had no other choice. One evening, Amanda went out for a girls' night with some friends from work. Initially, I told myself to trust her, but as the hours passed and she still hadn't returned home, my anxiety started to rise. I found myself packing the living room, glancing at my phone every few minutes for a text or a call. When she finally walked through the door just after midnight, I felt a mixture of relief and irritation. "You're really late," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Didn't you say you'd be home by 10? "Sorry, we ended up going to a different bar and I lost track of time," she replied a little too casually. "We had a great time. I didn't think you'd be worried." I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. I could smell the faint scent of cologne on her clothes, a scent that didn't belong to me. My heart sank as I tried to suppress the rush of emotions flooding back. "What about the guy who was with you? Was he there?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. "Just some guy from work," she said, her tone defensive. "I told you it was nothing. Can't I just have a night out without you questioning me?" That question hit a nerve. I had been trying to give her space to rebuild our relationship, but her defensiveness made me feel like she was still hiding something. "It's not about that. I'm just trying to understand if you're really committed to making things better between us," I said, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I am committed. She snapped back, her frustration evident. Can't you just trust me? I didn't respond, feeling the anger bubble beneath the surface. Trust was a two-way street, and I needed her to understand that. Instead, I retreated to the bedroom, feeling the familiar weight of doubt settle in my chest. Over the next few days, I found myself spiraling deeper into a cycle of suspicion and distrust. I knew I needed to confront Amanda again, but I also wanted to approach it differently this time. I had to be prepared, to gather my thoughts and present my case without coming off as paranoid. That weekend, I decided to take a break from the chaos and focus on myself. I went for a long hike in the nearby hills, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind. As I walked, I reflected on my feelings and desires. I needed to be honest with myself about what I wanted going forward. Did I want to fight for this relationship, or was I merely clinging to a hope that had already been dashed? When I returned home, I felt a little more grounded. I took a deep breath and asked Amanda to sit down for a talk. She looked up from the couch, her expression wary but curious. I want to address something important, I began, steadying my voice. I've been feeling uneasy about the trust issues between us, and I need clarity. I can't keep living in this state of uncertainty anymore. What do you mean? She asked, her brow furrowing. I need you to be fully honest with me about everything. I can't ignore the bruises on your wrists, the late nights, and the hidden interactions. I need to know if you're really committed to making this work, or if there's more you haven't told me, I said, my heart pounding. Her eyes widened, and I could see her mind racing as she processed my words. After a long pause, she finally spoke. I promise I'm trying, Jake. I really am. But I need you to trust me too. I understand that I broke that trust, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn it back. I looked straight into her, eyes hopping to see sincerity. But trust is built on honesty, Amanda. I need to feel like I can rely on you completely. If we're going to move forward, we need to be transparent with each other. The tension in the room hung thick as Amanda nodded slowly, her expression softening. You're right. I haven't been completely forthcoming, and I'm sorry. I'll do better. I'll be more open with you. As we talked, I felt a flicker of hope rekindling. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I had to give her a chance to prove herself. If she was serious about repairing our relationship, it was time for both of us to commit to being honest and vulnerable. For the first time in weeks, I felt a slight lift in my spirits. We were still in a fragile state, but perhaps there was a path forward. The road to healing would be long, but I was determined to navigate it together or find the strength to walk away if necessary. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. In the weeks following that pivotal conversation, Amanda and I made a concerted effort to rebuild our relationship. I could see genuine changes in her demeanor as she took my needs into account, and it seemed like we were finally on the same page. We continued attending therapy sessions together, delving deeper into the issues that had plagued our marriage. Each session brought new revelations. We learned about the importance of vulnerability and emotional honesty. Amanda began to open up about the feelings of isolation that had led to her affair, and I shared my struggles with trust and fear of abandonment. Slowly, we were dismantling the walls we had built around ourselves. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity. I found myself occasionally revisiting those bruises on her wrists in my mind, unable to shake the feeling that there was still something she hadn't fully revealed. But I also recognized that I had to find a way to let go of my obsessive thoughts if I wanted to move forward. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, Amanda turned to me with a serious expression. "Jake, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind," she said, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "Sure, what is it?" I replied, setting down the knife and giving her my full attention. "I know that I've hurt you, and I know that rebuilding trust is a process, but I want to be completely transparent with you from now on. I don't want to hide anything," she said. "I think it's important for us to share our feelings, even the uncomfortable ones." I felt a surge of appreciation for her willingness to confront the hard truths. I agree. I think we need to be able to express not just our fears but our hopes too. That includes what we want for the future. Amanda nodded. I want to take things one step at a time. I want to create a new foundation for us, but it's going to take work. I don't expect everything to magically resolve overnight. Her words resonated deeply. It was easy to fall back into old patterns of distrust, to assume that if she had lied once, she would lie again. But I knew I had to believe in the possibility of change if I wanted to find peace. One crucial decision I made during this time was to focus on building my own life outside of our marriage. I began reconnecting with old friends, pursuing hobbies I had abandoned, and investing time in my well-being. It felt liberating to prioritize myself and my happiness. By doing so, I was no longer solely dependent on Amanda for validation or fulfillment. As we continued our therapy, I could see Amanda evolving as well. She started volunteering at a local community center, channeling her energy into helping others and finding purpose beyond our relationship. I admired her strength and resilience as she worked through her own feelings of guilt and shame. One day, while we were driving to therapy, Amanda spoke up. I've been thinking a lot about what I want for us. I don't want to live in the shadow of my past mistakes. I want to build a future together built on trust and respect. Her sincerity struck a chord within me. I want that too, Amanda, but we need to keep being honest with each other. If something feels off, we need to talk about it immediately, no more hiding. As we progressed, we began to explore new experiences together, reigniting the spark that had flickered dimly during our darkest days. We attended workshops on communication, explored new restaurants, and even tried hiking together. It was refreshing to see laughter return to our relationship, to feel the warmth of connection blossom anew. However, the healing process wasn't linear. There were nights when insecurities crept back into my mind, whispers of doubt threatening to drown out the progress we had made. During these moments, I learned to voice my feelings rather than suppress them. I'd remind Amanda of my vulnerabilities, and she would respond with empathy and reassurance. One afternoon, as we were cleaning up after lunch, I decided to bring up something I had kept to myself for a while. You know, I sometimes still feel anxious about everything we went through. It's hard to shake off the fear that it could happen again. I admitted, feeling the familiar weight of uncertainty. I understand, Amanda said softly, her eyes reflecting both understanding and commitment. But we've come so far, Jake. I'm working every day to prove to you that I'm here for the long haul. I'll always choose you. Her words brought a swell of emotion. I knew she was trying. But the scars of betrayal would take time to fade. I realized my journey was also about learning to forgive, not just Amanda, but myself for allowing the doubts to linger. As summer turned to fall, the atmosphere in our home began to shift dramatically. There was a new sense of stability and warmth that hadn't existed before. I felt a renewed sense of hope, a belief that perhaps our love could be rebuilt stronger than it had ever been. Then came the day when Amanda surprised me with a small picnic in the park, a spontaneous gesture that reminded me of our early days together. As we sat on the blanket surrounded by colorful leaves, she took my hand in hers and smiled warmly. I know we've been through hell and back, but I want you to know that I'm committed to us. I believe we can make it, she said, her voice clear and unwavering. Looking into her eyes, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I do too. I think we're finally on the right track, Amanda. It's taken a lot of work, but I see the changes in you, and I'm willing to embrace this new chapter. In that moment, I felt a sense of closure, a realization that while the past would always be a part of our story, it didn't have to dictate our future. Together, we were forging a new path, one based on mutual respect, understanding, and a deeper love than we had known before. As the leaves turned vibrant shades of red and orange, I realized that I had come full circle. The journey hadn't been easy, but I emerged from it with a newfound sense of self-worth and a clearer vision of what I wanted from life and love. I learned the importance of honesty, vulnerability, and the power of choice. Our love story would continue, shaped by the lessons we'd learned along the way. And while the scars of betrayal would always remain, they would serve as reminders of our resilience, our growth, and the capacity to forgive and love again.